My name is Quintina, and I'm 35 years old. When I adopted my children Zach and Lily from foster care, I never imagined my own mother would say those words that cut so deep. We just love Thomas's children more. They're our actual grandchildren. It was 3 weeks before Thanksgiving when she said it during a call about sleeping arrangements. My brother's biological children would get the guest rooms, while mine were assigned air mattresses in the basement. That moment changed everything for us. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If you've ever had to stand up for your family against unfair treatment, hit that like button and subscribe. Stay with me to find out what happened when I finally decided my children deserved better than being second-class grandchildren at our family Thanksgiving. I grew up in an upper-middle-class suburban neighborhood in Massachusetts with my younger brother Thomas. Our childhood home was a beautiful colonial with a sprawling backyard where neighborhood kids would gather to play. My parents Martha and Richard Davis were well respected in our community. Dad was a successful attorney at a prestigious Boston firm, and Mom was the perfect lawyer's wife who volunteered at every school function and hosted dinner parties that were the talk of the neighborhood. From an early age, there was an unspoken rivalry between Thomas and me, fueled by our parents' subtle favoritism. Thomas was only 2 years younger, but he seemed to excel effortlessly at everything he tried. He was the star athlete, the straight-A student, the charismatic kid who made friends everywhere. My parents beamed with pride at his soccer games and academic award ceremonies. I was different. School was a struggle for me from the start. Words jumped around on pages, numbers confused me, and I had to work twice as hard as everyone else. In 3rd grade, I was diagnosed with dyslexia and ADHD, which explained my difficulties but didn't make them any easier to overcome. My parents viewed my learning disabilities as something to be hidden, a source of embarrassment rather than a different way of processing information. "Why can't you be more like your brother?" became a refrain in our household. Thomas doesn't need extra help with his homework, or Thomas doesn't forget to turn in his assignments. Each comparison was a tiny paper cut to my self-esteem, barely noticeable individually, but devastating in their accumulation. Despite these challenges, I discovered my passion in high school when I volunteered as a reading buddy for elementary students. Something clicked when I worked with children who struggled like I did. I could see their potential beneath the frustration, and I knew exactly how to encourage them because I'd walked in their shoes. That experience led me to pursue education in college, specializing in working with children who had learning differences. After graduation, I secured a position as an elementary special education teacher at a diverse school in Cambridge. The work was challenging but deeply fulfilling. I connected with families from all backgrounds and developed a particular interest in the foster care system after several of my students moved through it. The more I learned about children waiting for permanent homes, the more my heart opened to the idea of becoming a foster parent myself. Meanwhile, Thomas followed our father's footsteps into law, married his college girlfriend Natalie from a family even wealthier than ours, and settled into a picture-perfect life in a suburb not far from our parents. Their wedding was a lavish affair that my parents spoke about for years afterward. When they announced Natalie's first pregnancy 2 years later, my mother literally wept with joy at the prospect of becoming a grandmother. By this time, I was 30 and single, focused on my career and volunteering as a court-appointed special advocate for foster children. Dating had taken a back seat to my passion for helping vulnerable kids. When I shared my interest in becoming a foster parent with my family, their reactions were telling. My father frowned and asked, "Shouldn't you focus on finding a husband first?" My mother was more direct. "Quintina, dear, don't you want children of your own?" That comment stung, revealing her perspective that only biological children truly counted as family. Nevertheless, I proceeded with the certification process, attending parenting classes, submitting to home studies, and preparing my modest but comfortable home for a child. My parents remained skeptical, viewing my choice as another way I was failing to meet their expectations. Zach came into my life first, a solemn 6-year-old with trusting brown eyes and a love for dinosaurs. His mother had lost custody due to substance abuse issues, and he'd bounced between 3 foster homes in 2 years. He was behind in school, wary of adults, and had nightmares almost every night. But underneath the trauma was a curious, gentle boy who blossomed with consistent care and attention. After 2 years as his foster mother with reunification no longer an option, I officially adopted him. Lily arrived a year after Zach, a tiny 3-year-old with tangled blonde curls and haunted blue eyes. She barely spoke and flinched at sudden movements or loud noises. Her file documented severe neglect in her biological home. The first time she fell asleep in my arms, I knew I would do anything to protect this child. Her adoption was finalized last year, a joyous day where we celebrated becoming a forever family. My children had unique challenges stemming from their early experiences. Zach struggled with academic confidence and attachment issues. Lily had sensory processing difficulties and delayed speech. But they were also resilient, loving, and incredibly brave. Watching them heal and grow was the greatest privilege of my life. Thomas and Natalie now had 2 children of their own, Emma 12 and Jackson 9. They were beautiful, healthy kids who had never known a moment of insecurity or want. They attended private school, took tennis lessons, and spent summers at exclusive camps. Their home was a showcase featured in a regional lifestyle magazine with a backyard that included a swimming pool and professionally designed play area. From the outside, our lives couldn't look more different. And unfortunately, this difference was about to become the source of deep family wounds. The pattern of favoritism toward Thomas's children began subtly but grew more obvious as time passed. The first Christmas after Zach's adoption, I noticed a stark difference in the presents under my parents' tree. Emma and Jackson received expensive electronics, designer clothes, and the latest toys. Zach's gifts, while nice enough, were clearly less costly and thoughtful. When I gently mentioned this to my mother, she dismissively said, "Well, we've known Emma and Jackson longer. We'll catch up with Zach eventually." But eventually never seemed to come. As years passed, the inequality became more pronounced. My parents' home was filled with framed professional photographs of Emma and Jackson at various ages and activities. There were school portraits, sports action shots, and beautifully captured candid moments. The only photo of Zach was one I had given them tucked on a side table in the guest room. After Lily's adoption, I gave them a lovely professional photo of both children, which somehow never made it onto the wall. My parents' social media accounts told a similar story. They shared and commented enthusiastically on every post Thomas and Natalie made about their children's accomplishments. "So proud of our amazing granddaughter for winning the regional spelling bee," or "Jackson takes after his grandfather with that golf swing." Meanwhile, when Zach won a Courage Award at school for overcoming his reading difficulties, there was silence. When Lily spoke her first complete sentence after months of speech therapy, an achievement that had me in tears of joy, my mother's response was a perfunctory, "That's nice, dear." The children began to notice the disparity, too. During a family dinner, Jackson proudly showed off his soccer trophy, receiving lavish praise from my parents. Later that evening, Zach quietly asked if I would bring his science fair certificate next time we visited. "Maybe Grandma and Grandpa will put it on their fridge like Jackson's award," he said hopefully. The innocent request broke my heart. Lily's adoption day came and went without acknowledgement from my parents, while Emma's birthday the same month warranted a lavish party at their country club. My mother spent weeks planning every detail from the custom cake to the professional photographer. When I called to invite them to our small celebration for Lily's adoption anniversary, my mother claimed they had prior commitments. Later, I saw photos on Facebook of them playing golf that day. I tried multiple times to address these issues diplomatically. One afternoon over coffee, I carefully broached the subject with my mother. "Mom, I've noticed that you and Dad seem more involved with Emma and Jackson than with Zach and Lily. The kids are starting to pick up on it, and it's hurtful to them." She seemed genuinely confused. "What do you mean? We treat all our grandchildren the same. When was the last time you attended one of Zach's school events? Or asked Lily about her drawing, which she loves so much? You've never once offered to babysit them, though you have Emma and Jackson over for sleepovers regularly." My mother's expression hardened. "Well, Quintina, we're more comfortable with Thomas's children. We've known them from birth. Your situation is different." Different how, Mom? Because my children are adopted. You chose this unconventional path. You can't expect everyone to adjust immediately. That conversation ended with tension and no resolution. Thomas remained oblivious to the situation, or perhaps chose to ignore it. When I tried to discuss it with him, he brushed off my concerns. Mom and Dad are just old-fashioned Quen. Give them time. It was easy for him to be patient when his children weren't the ones being hurt. Natalie was another story entirely. I occasionally caught her subtle smirks when my mother lavished attention on her children. Once I overheard her telling a friend at a family gathering, "It's natural that Martha and Richard prefer our kids. Blood is thicker than water after all." The comment revealed that not only was she aware of the favoritism, but she encouraged it. The breaking point came during our annual summer family reunion at my parents' lake house. It was a sweltering July day, and the cousins were playing in the water while the adults gathered on the deck. Zach had excitedly worn his new swim goggles, eager to show his grandfather how well he could swim underwater. But my father was busy teaching Jackson to fish off the dock, waving Zach away with a distracted, "Maybe later, buddy." Later that afternoon, Zach went inside for a snack and overheard my mother talking to her sister in the kitchen. "Emma and Jackson are our real grandchildren," she was saying. "Quintina's adopted kids are sweet, but it's just not the same connection. You understand, right?" Zach didn't tell me about this conversation until we were driving home. His voice was small as he asked, "Mom, does it mean Grandma and Grandpa don't love me and Lily as much because we're adopted? Because we're not real grandchildren?" I had to pull the car over, unable to drive through my tears. I held my son close and assured him that he and his sister were absolutely real and absolutely loved. But inside, I was shattered. The casual cruelty of my mother's words, the thoughtlessness with which she had dismissed my children's place in the family, awakened not just my mama bear protective instincts, but old wounds from my own childhood of never quite measuring up. Lily, always sensitive to emotional undercurrents, became increasingly withdrawn around my parents. She would cling to me at family gatherings, refusing to engage with her grandparents. My usually chatty, curious daughter would become almost mute in their presence. One evening, after a particularly strained family dinner, she asked me with wide, serious eyes, "Are Emma and Jackson better than us?" I was torn between wanting my children to have relationships with their extended family and needing to protect them from the subtle emotional harm that came with each interaction. I remembered my own childhood feelings of inadequacy always in Thomas's shadow. Now history was repeating itself with a new generation, and I couldn't bear to watch my children internalize the message that they were somehow less deserving of love and attention. 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, my mother called to discuss the holiday plans. Thanksgiving had always been a big event at my parents' home, with extended family traveling from several states to attend. This year would be no different, with my aunt, uncle, and cousins from Chicago joining us. "We'll need to discuss sleeping arrangements," my mother said briskly. "Your aunt and uncle will have the guest room, of course. Emma can sleep in the den on the pull-out sofa, and Jackson can use the small guest room. Thomas and Natalie will take the basement suite." I waited, realizing she hadn't mentioned accommodations for my children. "And where will Zach and Lily sleep?" I asked. "Oh," she sounded surprised, as if she'd genuinely forgotten. "Well, I suppose they can use air mattresses in the basement rec room. It's not ideal, but it's only for 2 nights. The inequality was so blatant, I couldn't let it pass. "Mom, why would Emma get the den and Jackson get a proper guest room while my children sleep on air mattresses in the basement?" "Don't be difficult, Quintina. Emma is older and she's a girl who needs privacy. Jackson gets the small guest room because he has trouble sleeping in unfamiliar places. Your children will be fine in the basement." "My children also have specific needs," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Lily has nightmares in unfamiliar places too, and Zach needs consistent sleep for his medication to work properly." There was an impatient sigh on the other end of the line. "Honestly, Quintina, you're making this more complicated than it needs to be. We just love Thomas's children more. They're our actual grandchildren." The words hung in the air between us, so shocking in their casual cruelty that for a moment I couldn't breathe. There was silence. Then my mother seemed to realize what she'd said. "That didn't come out right," she backpedaled. "I just meant we have a different relationship with them because we've known them since birth." But I had heard the unvarnished truth. After years of suspecting how my parents felt, having it confirmed in such stark terms was both devastating and oddly clarifying. I ended the call abruptly, unable to continue the conversation without breaking down. Alone in my kitchen, I finally let the tears come. Years of hurt, not just for my children, but for the child I had been poured out of me. The persistent message that we weren't good enough, that we would always be secondary, that blood was the only thing that mattered in this family overwhelmed me. That's how Zach and Lily found me when they came home from their after-school program, sitting at the kitchen table with tears streaming down my face. I tried to compose myself, but Zach, perceptive as always, immediately asked what was wrong. I debated how much to share, wanting to protect them but also not wanting to lie. "I had a difficult conversation with Grandma about Thanksgiving," I said finally. "Sometimes adults disagree about things and I'm feeling sad about it." Lily climbed into my lap, her small hand patting my cheek. "Don't cry, Mommy." Zach stood straighter, his young face serious beyond his years. "Was it about us? Did Grandma say something about us being adopted again?" The direct question caught me off guard. "What do you mean again?" I asked, wondering what else they had picked up on that I hadn't realized. Zach exchanged a look with his sister. "We know Grandma and Grandpa like Emma and Jackson better. They give them better presents and take more pictures with them. And they call them their real grandchildren sometimes when they think we can't hear." My heart broke anew at the realization that my children had been aware of the favoritism all along. They had been quietly absorbing these painful messages while I tried to shield them. The aftermath of my mother's comment was predictable. She sent a text later that evening. "I'm sorry if what I said upset you. I was just being honest about how we feel. Hope you can understand that these things take time." It wasn't a real apology, just an attempt to smooth things over without addressing the underlying issue. My father called the next day, his tone gruff and defensive. "Your mother is very upset about your reaction. She misspoke and you're blowing this out of proportion. You've always been overly sensitive." Even Thomas weighed in, calling to suggest I let it go for the family's sake. It was the same dynamic that had played out my entire life, with everyone expecting me to accept less than equal treatment for the sake of family harmony. But this time was different. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about my children, who deserved to be valued and loved equally. I scheduled an emergency session with my therapist, who validated my concerns and helped me work through my options. "Your parents' behavior is showing a clear pattern of favoritism," she said. "And research consistently shows that children are harmed by such treatment even when adults try to hide it. Your children are already aware of it, which means the damage is occurring." I also spoke with close friends, including Jenna, a fellow adoptive parent who had experienced similar issues with her in-laws. "You need to set firm boundaries," she advised. "Your kids are watching how you respond to this treatment. If you accept it, they'll learn that's what they deserve." Over the next few days, I dove into research about the effects of grandparental favoritism on children, particularly in adoptive families. The findings were sobering. Children who perceived themselves as less favored by grandparents showed higher rates of depression, lower self-esteem, and more behavioral problems. For adopted children, who often already struggled with feelings of abandonment or not belonging, such favoritism could reinforce harmful beliefs about their worth and place in the family. Meanwhile, Zach had become increasingly protective of Lily, stepping between her and any potential hurt. He asked pointed questions about Thanksgiving, clearly anxious about the upcoming family gathering. "Do we have to go, Mom? Couldn't we just have our own Thanksgiving here?" Lily was more quietly affected, reverting to some of her earlier behaviors. She began having accidents at night again and asked more than once if I would ever give her back like her first mommy had. These questions tore at my heart. My sweet daughter, who had made so much progress in feeling secure, was now questioning her permanence in our family because of my parents' careless words and actions. With Thanksgiving less than 2 weeks away, I needed to make a decision about our plans. I considered several options, each with its own potential outcomes. We could attend as planned, and I could use the gathering as an opportunity to address the favoritism issue publicly. While this might force a conversation that was long overdue, it also risked creating a scene that could traumatize the children further. Did I want my kids to witness what would likely be a heated and painful confrontation? Alternatively, we could attend, and I could keep silent for the sake of peace as I had done so many times before. But what message would that send to Zach and Lily? That they should accept being treated as less important, less loved, that their feelings didn't matter as much as keeping adults comfortable. We could decline the invitation entirely, citing illness or other plans. This would avoid the immediate confrontation, but would only postpone the inevitable reckoning. It would also deprive us of the opportunity to see extended family members who were genuinely welcoming to all of us. Or we could create an alternative plan, something meaningful and positive, that would allow us to celebrate the holiday in a way that honored our family's unique composition and values. The decision weighed heavily on me. I wanted to maintain family relationships if possible, recognizing the importance of extended family connections for my children. But I also needed to protect them from the emotional harm that came with being treated as second-class family members. Seeking additional guidance, I consulted with Dr. Reynolds, a child psychologist who specialized in adoption issues. Her advice was straightforward. Your primary responsibility is to your children's emotional well-being. If your parents aren't willing to treat all grandchildren equally, limiting exposure to that dynamic is appropriate. Children absorb these messages deeply, even when adults think they're being subtle. She also suggested strategies for building resilience in my children. Create strong family traditions of your own. Help them connect with other adopted families. Surround them with adults who clearly value and celebrate them. And most importantly, model healthy boundary setting when people don't treat them with full respect. This last point resonated deeply. Throughout my own childhood and into adulthood, I had accepted less than equal treatment from my parents. I had swallowed my hurt when they lavished praise on Thomas while offering me criticism. I had smiled through countless family events where his accomplishments were celebrated while mine went unnoticed. In trying to be the good daughter, I had taught myself that my feelings and needs mattered less. Was I now teaching my children the same harmful lesson? The realization was like a light switching on. I had worked so hard to help Zach and Lily develop healthy self-esteem and a sense of security. How could I then take them into an environment where they were explicitly valued less than their cousins, where the adults who should love them unconditionally had already declared that they were not actual family? In that moment of clarity, my decision crystallized. We would not attend Thanksgiving at my parents' home. Instead, we would create our own celebration focused on gratitude for the family we had created together. I called several friends who I knew would be alone for the holiday, including Jenna and her adopted son, my neighbor Marcus, who was a widower, and my colleague Sophia, whose family lived overseas. Everyone enthusiastically accepted the invitation to our chosen family Thanksgiving. With our alternative plans in place, I called my mother to inform her of our decision. I chose a time when I knew the children would be at their after-school activities, giving me privacy for what would likely be a difficult conversation. Mom, I've given a lot of thought to Thanksgiving, and I've decided that the children and I won't be attending this year. There was a moment of stunned silence. What do you mean, you won't be attending? It's Thanksgiving. We're family. Yes, we are family, I agreed. But recent events have made it clear that my children aren't viewed or treated as equal members of that family. I can't expose them to that anymore. This is ridiculous, Quentina, she sputtered. You're overreacting to one comment that I've already apologized for. It wasn't just one comment, Mom. It's been a pattern throughout their lives, from the pictures on your walls, to the presents under the tree, to the way you talk about them. They've noticed. They know you consider Emma and Jackson your real grandchildren. Do you have any idea how hurtful that is? My mother's voice turned manipulative. So you're going to deprive them of Thanksgiving with their family because of your hurt feelings? That seems selfish. The accusation stung, but I held firm. I'm protecting them from feeling unwelcome and less than in what should be a loving family gathering. We'll be celebrating Thanksgiving with friends who value all of us equally. She shifted to guilt-tripping. Your father will be so disappointed. And Thomas's children have been looking forward to seeing their cousins. I'm sorry about that. Perhaps you can explain to them that treating all grandchildren equally is important for family unity. When manipulation and guilt didn't work, anger followed. You've always been difficult, Quentina. Always demanding special treatment. Now you're dividing the family because you can't accept that biological relationships are different from adoptive ones. They're different, but they shouldn't be unequal, I responded, keeping my voice level despite the hurt. My children deserve the same love, attention, and respect as Thomas's children. Until you can provide that, we need to take a step back. The conversation ended with my mother declaring that I was making a terrible mistake and would regret cutting off my family. My father called shortly afterward, his voice stern with disapproval, but I remained resolute. This wasn't about punishing my parents or creating drama. It was about protecting two vulnerable children who had already experienced too much rejection in their young lives. Thanksgiving morning dawned clear and cold, a perfect New England autumn day. The children were excited about our alternative celebration, helping me prepare the turkey and set the table with special place cards they had made for each guest. We were developing our own traditions, including a gratitude tree, where everyone would hang notes expressing what they were thankful for. Throughout the morning, my phone buzzed with texts from family members. My mother sent several messages ranging from angry, "You're being incredibly selfish," to pleading, "Please reconsider, it won't be the same without you." Thomas texted that I was ruining the holiday and making Mom cry. I responded politely but firmly to each message, reiterating our decision without getting drawn into arguments. Around noon, as I was preparing the stuffing with Lily carefully tearing bread beside me, there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, I was surprised to find Thomas standing on my porch looking uncomfortable. "Can we talk?" he asked, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "Uncle Thomas?" Zach called out, running to greet him with a hug. Despite the tension between the adults, the children adored their uncle, who was always kind to them when we were together. "Hey, buddy," Thomas said, returning the hug but keeping his eyes on me. "Zach, could you and Lily go play in your rooms for a bit? I need to talk to your mom." Once the children were upstairs, Thomas's friendly demeanor evaporated. "What are you trying to prove with this stunt? Quen Mom is beside herself." I led him to the kitchen so I could continue preparing food while we talked. "This isn't a stunt, Thomas. It's a boundary. Mom explicitly said she loves your children more than mine because they're her actual grandchildren. I can't subject Zach and Lily to that environment." Thomas ran a hand through his hair, a gesture reminiscent of our father when frustrated. "Look, I know Mom can be tactless sometimes, but she didn't mean it the way it sounded." "Didn't she?" "Because it matched perfectly with how she's treated my children since I adopted them. The unequal gifts, the photos missing from the walls, the attention lavished on Emma and Jackson, while Zach and Lily are barely acknowledged. They're not stupid, Thomas. They've noticed." My brother had the grace to look ashamed. "I've noticed some of that too," he admitted. "But I figured it wasn't my place to say anything." "Not your place. They're your niece and nephew being treated as less than your children. How would you feel if someone treated Emma and Jackson that way?" "I'd be furious," he conceded. "I guess I've been silent because it was convenient for me. For my kids. I'm sorry, Quen. I should have said something." His admission surprised me. I had expected more defensiveness, not this glimpse of self-awareness. "There's something else you should know," he continued, looking uncomfortable. "Natalie, she kind of encourages it. She likes being Mom and Dad's favorite. She's made comments about how our kids are the real grandchildren, how they'll inherit everything because blood is thicker than water. I've told her to stop, but not firmly enough, I guess." This confirmation of what I'd long suspected hurt, but also clarified the situation further. The problem wasn't just my parents' bias, but an entire family dynamic that reinforced it. Before I could respond, my phone rang. It was my mother, and Thomas nodded for me to take the call. "Quintina?" My mother's voice was tense. "We've made a decision. Since you won't come to us, we're coming to you. We're bringing Thanksgiving dinner to your house." "What? No, Mom. That's not what this is about. We already have plans with friends." "Nonsense. We're family. We'll be there in an hour. I've already put the side dishes in the car." "Mom, please don't do this. I've made my decision clear." But she had already hung up. I turned to Thomas, who looked sheepish. "Did you know about this?" He nodded. "It was discussed after you called last night. I tried to talk them out of it, but you know how Mom gets when she's set on something." I felt a surge of anger at this blatant disregard for my boundaries. This is exactly the problem, Thomas. No one in this family respects my decisions or my autonomy. And now you're all planning to barge into my home, disrupting the peaceful day I've planned for my children, because Mom can't accept hearing no. Thomas at least had the decency to look ashamed. "You're right. I'll call her back and tell her not to come." But it was too late. Within the hour, my doorbell rang again, and there stood my entire family, my parents, Thomas, who had apparently left to pick up Natalie and their children, Emma and Jackson. My mother pushed past me into the house, arms full of casserole dishes. "Happy Thanksgiving, darling," she said brightly, as if our earlier conversation had never happened. "I've brought all the traditional dishes. Your father is bringing in the turkey from the car." I stood frozen in my own doorway, watching as my boundaries were trampled by this invasion. Richard followed, carrying a large roasting pan with Thomas and his family behind him. Natalie gave me a thin smile as she brushed past, already criticizing my decor under her breath. My friends were due to arrive in less than an hour. Zach and Lily came downstairs at the commotion, their expressions a mix of confusion and wariness. Lily immediately came to my side, gripping my leg tightly, while Zach stood on the stairs watching the scene unfold with anxious eyes. Martha bustled into my kitchen, making disapproving noises at my half-prepared meal. "Oh, this will never do. Good thing I brought proper Thanksgiving food. Your little friends can still come, of course, though it will be a bit crowded with the whole family here." The casual dismissal of my plans, my home, my autonomy, was the final straw. Years of swallowing hurt, of prioritizing peace over truth, of allowing my children to be treated as less than crystallized, into a moment of absolute clarity. "Stop," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "This is not happening." The kitchen fell silent, everyone turning to stare at me. I made it clear that we had other plans today. I made it clear why we needed space from the family. And yet, here you all are, barging into my home as if my decisions don't matter, as if my boundaries don't exist. Martha frowned. "Don't be dramatic, Quintina. We're family. We belong together on Thanksgiving." "Family respects each other," I replied. "Family treats each other equally. Family doesn't declare that some grandchildren are more loved than others." "Not this again," my mother sighed. "I've apologized for that comment." "No, you haven't. You've justified it. You've minimized it. You've blamed me for being upset by it. But you haven't once acknowledged the harm it caused or the truth it revealed." My friends began arriving, standing awkwardly in the doorway as they sensed the tension. Jenna gave me a supportive nod, understanding immediately what was happening. My father tried to take charge, directing my friends to put their dishes on the counter, as if this was now his event to manage. As the living room filled with uncomfortable people, Natalie made a cutting remark about my modest Thanksgiving preparations compared to Martha's elaborate spread. Zach moved closer to me, standing protectively near his sister, who was now hiding behind my legs. "Real family should be together on holidays," Martha announced to the room, a pointed comment that was the match to the fuse of my patience. Something in me broke open. Years of pent-up hurt and frustration poured out in a steady, clear voice that surprised even me. "Let me be absolutely clear about something," I said, addressing the entire room. "These children are my real family. They are real people with real feelings who deserve real respect and real love. And for 3 years they have watched their cousins receive preferential treatment in every possible way. I began listing specific incidents, no longer willing to pretend they hadn't happened. Emma and Jackson get expensive Christmas gifts while Zach and Lily get afterthoughts. Emma and Jackson's photos cover your walls while my children's pictures are tucked away in drawers. You attend every soccer game and dance recital for them, but have never once come to Zach's science fair or Lily's art show. You take Emma and Jackson for special grandparent days, but have never once offered to babysit my children. And yes, you explicitly stated that you love them more because they're your actual grandchildren. The room was silent. Thomas looked at the floor, Natalie examined her manicure with sudden interest, and my father shifted uncomfortably. My mother's face was flushed with anger or embarrassment, I couldn't tell which. I have spent my entire life accepting less than equal treatment in this family. I was never enough compared to Thomas, never smart enough or athletic enough or accomplished enough. And now my children are being measured by the same impossible standards, with the added burden that their very existence as adopted children makes them somehow less valid members of this family. I won't allow it anymore. Not for myself, and certainly not for them. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the final boundary. If you can't treat all your grandchildren with equal love, attention, and respect, then you need to leave my home. My children deserve better, and I'm finally ready to ensure they get it. The silence that followed was deafening. Then from the stairway came a small voice. "Mom." It was Lily. Her face pale but determined as she moved from her hiding place. In her hands was a drawing she must have been working on upstairs. She walked to the center of the room, her small shoulders squared with a courage that made my heart ache. She held up her picture for everyone to see. It showed two groups of stick figures separated by a line down the middle. On one side were labeled figures: Grandma, Grandpa, Uncle Thomas, Aunt Natalie, Emma, Jackson. On the other side, Mommy, Zach, Lily. "This is the real family," she said, pointing to the first group. "And this is us." Her voice was small but clear in the stunned silence. That's what Grandma told Auntie on the phone. I heard her. The impact of Lily's innocent drawing was immediate and profound. My mother's face crumpled as she saw her own words reflected back through the eyes of a 7-year-old child. For perhaps the first time, she was confronted with the real harm her actions and attitudes had caused. "Oh," she whispered, one hand covering her mouth. "Oh, Lily, I never meant," but she had meant it. We all knew she had. The difference was that now she could see the impact of her words on a child who had already experienced too much rejection in her short life. My father, usually so quick to defend my mother, looked at the drawing with genuine dismay. "Lily, sweetheart, that's not true. You are our family." "But Grandma said," Lily insisted with the unwavering honesty of a child. "She said we're not the real grandchildren because we're adopted." The raw truth hung in the air, impossible to deny or explain away. Thomas stepped forward, kneeling to Lily's level. "Lily, your grandma was wrong. Being adopted doesn't make you any less part of our family. I'm sorry we haven't made that clear to you." Natalie shifted uncomfortably, unable to meet anyone's eyes. After a moment, she muttered something about the children being overtired and suggested they leave. To my surprise, Thomas straightened and shook his head. "No, Natalie. We need to address this as a family. Emma and Jackson need to understand that their cousins are equal members of this family and that the preferential treatment has to stop." My mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. For once, she seemed at a loss for words. Finally, she approached me, her voice subdued. "I think we should go. You're right that we've intruded on your plans. I didn't want to lose you. Any of you." "You're not losing us, Mom," I said gently. "But our relationship needs to change if it's going to be healthy for everyone, especially the children." She nodded, looking older and smaller than I could remember seeing her. "Can we talk tomorrow? Really talk?" "Yes," I agreed. "That would be good." One by one, my family members gathered their things and prepared to leave. Richard stopped to awkwardly pat Zach's shoulder, a small gesture, but one I hadn't seen him make before. Thomas hugged both children, whispering something in their ears that made them smile slightly. Even Natalie managed a stiff nod in my direction, before herding her children toward the door. As they left, my chosen family remained witnessing this turning point with quiet support. Jenna squeezed my hand, and Marcus began quietly setting the table as if nothing unusual had happened. Sophia distracted the children by asking them to show her the gratitude tree they had made. The Thanksgiving celebration that followed was unlike any I had experienced before. There was laughter, genuine warmth, and an atmosphere where everyone was valued equally. Zach and Lily gradually relaxed their smiles, returning as they realized they were surrounded by people who saw and celebrated them for exactly who they were. That night, as I tucked them into bed, Zach asked the question that had clearly been on his mind. "Are Grandma and Grandpa mad at us now?" "No, sweetheart," I assured him. "They're not mad at you. They're learning that some of their ideas about family need to change. And I think today was an important step in that direction." "Will we see them at Christmas?" Lily wondered, her voice small. "We'll see," I said truthfully. "But I promise you this, from now on, you will only spend time with people who treat you with full respect and love. That's what you deserve, and I won't accept anything less for you." The weeks following Thanksgiving were quiet. My parents maintained a respectful distance, though my mother sent a brief text saying she was thinking about everything. Extended family members who had heard about what happened reached out with surprising support. My Aunt Lisa called to tell me she was proud of me for standing up for my children, and my cousin Michael sent a thoughtful email acknowledging that he too had noticed the disparate treatment. Thomas made efforts to bridge the gap, calling regularly and bringing his children for a playdate without Natalie. During that visit, he spoke privately with me while the kids played. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since Thanksgiving," he admitted, "about how I've benefited from being the favorite, how I've allowed it to continue because it was comfortable for me. I'm sorry, Quen, for all of it." As Christmas approached, I braced myself for another potential conflict. But instead of holiday pressure, I received an unexpected request from my mother. She wanted to meet for coffee, just the two of us. We met at a quiet cafe halfway between our homes. My mother looked nervous, fidgeting with her napkin as we exchanged awkward greetings. After our coffee arrived, she took a deep breath. "I've been doing a lot of soul-searching since Thanksgiving," she began, "and seeing a therapist, actually. Your father thinks it's unnecessary, but I knew something needed to change." This admission stunned me. My mother had always dismissed therapy as something for weak people who can't solve their own problems. "The truth is," she continued, "I've been carrying some deeply ingrained beliefs about family and biology that I never really examined. My own parents were very traditional, and I absorbed their views without question. When you adopted Zach and Lily, it challenged those beliefs in ways that made me uncomfortable. Instead of examining why I felt that way, I just retreated into what was familiar." She reached across the table, tentatively touching my hand. "I'm not making excuses. What I did was wrong and hurtful. Seeing Lily's drawing, realizing how my words had affected a child, it was a wake-up call I needed. I listened carefully, searching for signs that this was just another attempt to smooth things over without real change. But there was a humility in my mother's manner that I hadn't seen before. "I'd like another chance," she said. "With you, with Zach, with Lily. I want to be a real grandmother to them if you'll let me try." "What would that look like?" I asked cautiously. "Equal treatment for starters. Equal gifts, equal attention, equal photographs on the walls. I've already replaced some of the photos in our home to create a better balance. But more than that, I want to actually know them, to appreciate them for who they are rather than focusing on how they came to us." It was a start, but I needed more concrete assurances. "I appreciate that, Mom. But I need to be clear about my expectations going forward. The children will only be in environments where they are fully accepted and valued. That means no more comments about real family versus adopted family, no more preferential treatment for Emma and Jackson, no more excluding Zach and Lily from traditions or activities." She nodded. "That's fair. And if I slip up, which I might as I'm learning, please tell me directly. I also need Dad, Thomas, and especially Natalie, to be on board. This can't just be you making changes while everyone else continues the same patterns. Your father and I have had many long conversations about this, He's resistant to admitting he's done anything wrong, you know how he is, but he is committed to changing his behavior. Thomas is fully supportive. Natalie, she sighed. Natalie is more challenging, but Thomas has made it clear to her that this is non-negotiable if she wants peace in the family. We talked for over 2 hours, covering years of hurt and misunderstanding. For perhaps the first time, my mother really listened to my experiences, both as her daughter, who had always felt less favored, and as a mother protecting my children from the same pain. It wasn't a perfect conversation, and there were moments of defensiveness on both sides, but it felt like a genuine beginning. Before we parted, I made it clear that rebuilding trust would take time. The children and I will join you for Christmas Eve, but we'll have our own Christmas Day celebration at home. It's important that we maintain our own traditions while we work on improving family relationships. My mother agreed, adding, I've signed up for a grandparenting adopted children class at the community center. The first session is next week. I want to understand better and do better. This small but significant effort touched me deeply. It suggested a willingness to change that went beyond words. Over the following weeks, small signs of change began to appear. My father called Zach directly to ask about his interest in astronomy, then sent him a beginner's telescope with a note saying he'd like to stargaze together sometime. My mother arranged one-on-one time with Lily, taking her to a pottery painting studio and listening attentively as my daughter explained her artistic choices. Thomas ensured that his children treated their cousins, equally correcting Emma when she made a thoughtless comment about adoption. We also began family therapy sessions, a challenging but necessary step in healing the deep wounds that had formed over years. There were difficult moments of confrontation and painful truths exposed, but also breakthroughs in understanding and communication. Not everything changed overnight. There were slip-ups and old patterns that occasionally resurfaced. Natalie remained cool toward my children, though she was careful not to show outright favoritism anymore. My father sometimes struggled to connect authentically with Zach and Lily, falling back on awkward formality. But the important difference was that these issues were now addressed openly rather than swept under the rug. 1 year later, as we gathered for Thanksgiving at my parents' home, the transformation was remarkable. The walls now displayed an equal number of photographs of all 4 grandchildren. The sleeping arrangements had been rearranged to give each child a proper space. My mother had prepared thoughtful place settings with each child's favorite Thanksgiving foods. Most importantly, there was a genuine warmth in my parents' interactions with Zach and Lily. My mother listened intently as Lily described her art project at school, asking questions that showed she had been paying attention to my daughter's interests throughout the year. My father took Zach aside to show him a collection of geodes he had purchased, knowing my son's newfound interest in geology. Thomas and I shared a private moment watching our children play together in the backyard. They seem like actual cousins now, don't they? He observed. Not 2 sets of kids who happen to be related. They are actual cousins, I reminded him gently. They always were. The difference is that the adults in their lives are finally acknowledging that. He nodded, understanding the correction. You know, standing up to the family the way you did last year, it changed things for all of us. Not just for Zach and Lily, but for Emma and Jackson too. They were learning the wrong lessons about what family means, and honestly for me as well. I've started standing up to Dad at work in ways I never would have before. The journey hadn't been without its challenges. There had been setbacks and moments when old patterns threatened to reassert themselves. My mother occasionally made thoughtless comments that she quickly corrected. My father sometimes fell into comparing the grandchildren before catching himself. Natalie maintained a polite but distant relationship with my children, though she was careful not to show overt favoritism anymore. But the crucial difference was that these issues were now addressed openly rather than ignored. We had developed a family culture where it was acceptable to say, that comment wasn't appropriate, or the children need to be treated equally. And slowly the balance had shifted toward genuine inclusion. For me personally, the past year had been transformative. Standing up for my children had healed something in me as well, that little girl who had always felt she wasn't quite good enough compared to her brother. I had found a strength and confidence I hadn't known I possessed, along with the ability to set boundaries without guilt or apology. My children had blossomed in this healthier environment. Zach's anxiety had decreased significantly, and he was taking more risks socially and academically. Lily had become more expressive, no longer afraid to take up space in family gatherings. Both children seemed more secure in the knowledge that their mother would protect them from harm, even when that meant confronting powerful adults. As we sat around the Thanksgiving table that year, my mother suggested a new tradition. "I thought we might each share something we're grateful for about another person at the table," she said. "I'll start. I'm grateful to Quintina for having the courage to show me that my actions weren't matching my values and for giving me the chance to become a better grandmother and mother." Her sincerity brought tears to my eyes. When it was my turn, I looked around at the faces of my family, imperfect, but trying, and felt genuine gratitude. "I'm thankful for second chances," I said simply, "and for the opportunity to build a family where everyone truly belongs." Later, as we prepared to leave, Lily tugged at my mother's sleeve. "Grandma, are you coming to my school play next week? I'm going to be a tree, but I have 3 whole lines." "I wouldn't miss it for the world, sweetheart," my mother responded, and I knew she meant it. The journey to true family acceptance is rarely straightforward or easy. It requires honesty, courage, and the willingness to face uncomfortable truths. But as I watched my children confidently take their places in a family that now truly welcomed them, I knew that every difficult conversation, every boundary set, every tear shed had been worthwhile. Family is not defined by blood, but by love, respect, and the choice to truly see and value each person for who they are. Sometimes creating a healthy family requires making difficult decisions and standing firm in the face of resistance. But the reward of family where everyone belongs equally is worth every moment of struggle. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself or your loved ones against family favoritism? What boundaries did you set? And how did your family respond? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories about family transformation and healing. And if you know someone who might be struggling with similar family dynamics, share this video with them as a reminder that they deserve equal love and respect. Thank you for listening, and I wish you the courage to create family relationships where everyone truly belongs.